Chapter 5. "We could use him, Master," Mahadevi said, seating herself before her teacher. Rishi Siraj gestured for her to continue. "Our connections in the Congress Party are perhaps not sufficient to weather the outcry from the Hindu reactionaries." Siraj grimaced. How he longed to be free from these cow worshippers. "My people in Delhi say to be ready for a surprise," Mahadevi continued, as Siraj's whole body sagged with the news. Must he hear about his tax problems again? Mahadevi looked intently at her teacher. She hoped he understood the seriousness of the threat at hand. She had finally run out of money for bribes. Her ancestral fortune was now gone, and there'd be no money for keeping the politicians at bay. They fervently wanted to nail her controversial teacher, currying favor with the mindless masses. "He could be our entry to America," Mahadevi said. "Why do we need him?" "His uncle is a powerful senator, and his grandfather is one of the richest men in the country." Siraj knew all this. Currently on his nightstand was an issue of the U.S. News and World Report detailing Senator Paul Hennessy's chances for the presidency. But he let Mahadevi ramble on. Her worried chatter calmed him down. "You've talked to him?" he asked, interrupting Mahadevi's tortured discourse on American immigration law. "Several times." "Will he surrender, Suraj asked, stroking his chin. "I'm sure you can reach him, Rishiji." "Feel him out. Tell him I will give him a special darshan at 7 tonight," Suraj said, dismissing his aide with a wave of the hand. That afternoon, after finishing their meditation, Alan lay down in the sun. Rani gazed down at him, feeling that the darkness that had surrounded him was now clearing. The evil spirit that she had encountered during their first meditation no longer hovered about him. "You don't write your father?" she asked. "No." "And your mother?" "After the divorce, she moved back to England, and since then we've hardly talked." "So different here," Rani mused, a bittersweet smile coming to her face. "What do you mean?" "Here, you never get away from family. Hate it, betray it, burn your wife, and even then, her ghost will still sleep in your bed at night," Rani said as Alan chuckled. "You know, my father sleeps with his devotees," she asked. "Yeah?" "There is no marriage left, and yet my mother still stays here in her little cottage with her opium tea, her movie magazines, and her huge statue of Ganesha. You Westerners think you know India," Rani mused. "You see the Taj Mahal, do a few good deeds at Mother Teresa's, learn a little Ayurveda, and the subcontinent is done." Alan sat up, moving closer to her. He had never met anyone like Rani before. When he was with her, the forces that haunted him seemed to stay at bay. He had always been careful not to be too forward with her, but today that caution was gone. "What is it about India?" he whispered, feeling everything jumbled inside of him. "India is a place where everything gets confused," she replied, as he reached over and suddenly kissed her. She sat back after that and gazed at him, this American who was surrounded by money and a creature that stalked him. She wondered, was this the soulmate that was promised her? Was this the end of her loneliness, or the beginning of her sorrow? "I have to go," she said, abruptly getting to her feet. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, I just have to go," she repeated, walking away. That night, Alan went over to Suraj's personal quarters. He walked barefoot over the intricately laid marble floor, his palms pressed together as he greeted the teacher. "Ah, you are here. Good." Once again, Mahadevi brought out the silver tray, holding the 2 glasses of frothy liquid. Alan reached for one glass, taking a long sip from the cool beverage. "The therapy groups are good, Suraj asked. Alan nodded. "It is good to get rid of the pain of the past. Get rid of it, and you will be great. That is why I called you here tonight, Suraj said, raising his head toward Mahadevi, who made a quick retreat from the room. At one time, there can only be 8 enlightened masters on the planet. When I first saw you and scanned your aura, I knew that you could be one, This is no small thing, but you lack training. Your ego needs to be chiseled by a teacher, What do you think of that? I don't know what to say, Alan replied, stunned. You and I will do great things, and we will do them in America, Suraj pronounced, as a puzzled look came over Alan. America? Rishi Suraj nodded slowly at him. Look around you, son. What do you see? Alan shrugged his shoulders. An ancient culture, stewing in its own corruption and mindless rituals, Suraj answered, waving his finger at him. I want you to meditate on this. Talk to no one. This is a secret between just you and me. Think about it. Think, he intoned, the final K sound cutting the air between them. I will, stammered Alan, taking his leave of Suraj. The next morning, the devotees at the ashram danced wildly to a highly amplified recording of some Bhangra CD. Adding to the sound blasting from the speakers were 2 men drumming away on their large congas. Alan and a few dozen others swayed, twirled, and danced to the pulsating sound. Suddenly the music stopped, and everyone on the concrete floor froze immediately into the position they were in when the music stopped. Alan's torso was tilted almost 90 degrees to the rest of his body. He stayed in that position, breathing deeply as he felt the pull in his muscles. Finally, after what seemed like minutes, one of the conga players yelled, "Green light!" This was followed by shrieks of joy as shawls and caps were thrown high into the air. Alan pulled on his sweatshirt and was about to go over to the ashram cafe for breakfast when Mahadevi tapped him on the shoulder. Alan, let us talk, she said, signaling for him to follow her. They walked over to Mahadevi's small cottage a little ways off. Alan took off his sneakers and walked inside. Please sit, Mahadevi said, directing him to one of the beautifully carved wooden chairs in her living room. She then closed the door and peered out the window, making sure that no one was around. We can never be too careful with Rishiji's secrets, Mahadevi said, sitting in a chair before Alan. Great men always have small men who want to drag them down, she began. Rishiji told me of your conversation, and how you may be of help to us. The Hindu fanatics in our government are closing in on us. If the master is to continue teaching, he will have to do it elsewhere soon. So, this is how you can help us, she said, edging her chair closer to him. For a member of Congress, especially a senator, it is not a big thing to sponsor someone into your country. You just attach it to a bill, she said blithely. I'm not sure my uncle would go for that, Alan replied warily. Alan, she said, her eyes narrowing on him. I'm sure you could bring him around, especially since you now understand the threat we face. Please, see what you can do. Time is of the essence.